Mr. Jones, the owner of Manor Farm, oppressed the farm animals with neglect and cruelty. Finally, after enduring enough of his cruelty, animals decide it's time to teach Mr. Jones some manners. So all the farm animals unite to revolt against their owner and take control of the farm. This is the outline for Animal Farm, a political satire written by George Orwell, published in 1945, which explores the themes of power, corruption, and pursuit of equality. I'll be sharing my two key observations from this book that I feel are worth exploring. But before we dive into these, I would like to start by sharing my overall reading experience. When I first read Animal Farm in 2022, I was a newbie reader. I did not read a lot of books, and my reading journey started with mostly self-help books. So I had a very restricted idea about books. But as a political satire, Animal Farm was very different reading experience for me. Not just because of its unfamiliar genre to me, also the writing style of George Orwell is very distinct. If I have to describe Orwell's writing style with my very limited knowledge, I would say it's magical realism with Orwell's personal touch.
Now, what is magical realism?
Don't worry, I also got to know about magical realism while researching and rereading Animal Farm for this video. In very simple terms, magical realism is a literary or writing style that blends elements of fantasy or magic with realistic ordinary world. This style allows writer to explore complex themes and ideas by blurring line between reality and fantasy. So as I mentioned in this book, some animals revolt against their owner to take control of the farm. When you first hear this, it might feel like pure fantasy. But that's the thing, what sets magical realism apart from fantasy is that in magical realism, these magical or fantasy elements are seamlessly integrated into otherwise realistic world and are treated as ordinary by both the characters and narrative tone. Now after hearing words like magical realism and political satire, you may assume this book is complex and absurd, but that's not the case. The language of Animal Farm is very simple. I was able to find few new words to add in my vocab without having any hard time completing this book. Also because of its small size, with most editions consisting only around 100 pages. And after rereading this book, I have two interesting observations that I would like to share. First of which being there could be two type of readers. Actually, the simple story of farm animals reflects events leading up to the Russian Revolution of 1917 and then on to the Stalinist era, a period of time when Russia lived under the communist ideology of Joseph Stalin. Orwell brilliantly presents these complex historical events through a simple story of farm animals. The narrative tone has two layers. On one level, it's a straightforward tale of animals fighting for power and equality. On another, it's a deeper analogy mirroring real-life events of Russian Revolution and rise of Stalinism. And in this sense, there could be two type of readers: people who have understanding and historical context and people who don't. If you fall under the former, you will be able to catch hints and metaphors planted by Orwell, which will help you draw correlation between both the layers. You will have a better understanding of which animal and event reflects which real life entity. And that's very good if you already have some understanding of Russian Revolution. But if you don't, that brings us to the second type of people like me who did not pay any attention in their history class. So when I first read it, I had no idea about its historical context, second layer and all. And I read it just as a fun fantasy story. After completing this book, I got to know about the second layer, metaphors and all. Before making this video, I reread this book with all the historical context in my mind. And I realized this simple story with magical realism is so well written that this lack of historical context won't prevent you from understanding the core message delivered by Orwell. I would recommend you to pick this book as a first type of readers. But as I said, if you don't have any understanding of Russian Revolution and Stalinism, it's completely fine to read this book as a straightforward tale of animals fighting for power and equality. However, after reading this book as both type of readers, second interesting observation that I have is how Animal Farm portrays the character transformation. First half of the book focuses on animals' struggle to gain power and overthrow their human oppressor. This collective fight is led by pigs who rally the farm animals around the idea of equality and freedom. But as the story progresses into second half, writer reveals the darker side of power. Once in control, pigs gradually shift from their revolutionary ideas, embracing same corruption and manipulation they once criticized in humans. And here I would like to talk how this transformation is illustrated by Orwell in this book. When we think of leaders like Hitler and Stalin, it's very easy to view them as always having these bad intentions from the start or as having suddenly turned corrupt. This is very simplistic black and white view, assuming they were either always bad or suddenly became so. But the way this transition is portrayed in book feels so natural and human This nuanced portrayal encouraged me as a reader to consider systematic forces that contribute to moral decline and not just the individual in power. This transformation of pigs into oppressive rulers feels almost inevitable. Orwell's brilliance lies in how he crafts this gradual change through subtle, realistic changes in animals' behavior, making even unexpected and surprising events look like a natural consequence within the story. And that's the beauty of magical realism, where even this fantastical or imaginative seems grounded and believable.